Good evening. I'm calling the Monday, March 9th, 2026 Planning Commission meeting to order at 6:30. Tonight's meeting is being conducted both in person and online. Members of the public may attend in person, or the public may watch the meeting online at burnsville.gov/meetings, or to view on Comcast Channel 16 or 859. The public may also join us on Zoom by going to zoom.us/join. For more information is available on our meetings website and in the agenda. First item is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes, adjustments? Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Commissioner?
Second motion.
Second. Any further discussion? Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Next item is the approval of the minutes from February 23rd. Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lowe. Any further discussion by staff or anything? Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. The next item is a public hearing application for Cannabis Connoisseur Company, LLC, for a conditional use permit to allow cannabis microbusiness at 3200 Highway 13 West, presenting Kara Chapman, Associate Planner.
Thank you for that introduction. Yes, today I'm going to briefly talk about the application for a conditional use permit to allow a cannabis microbusiness at 3200 Highway 13 West by Cannabis Connoisseur Company. These two images are images of the subject property. The left-hand side is an aerial image of the subject property highlighted in a red border. The right-hand image is a zoning map of the subject property. The subject property and surrounding properties to the west, or to the north, west, and east are all zoned GIH, Gateway Industrial Heavy, and guided as MRQ Minnesota River Quadrant in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Directly south is Highway 13 West. Cannabis Connoisseur Company is seeking a conditional use permit approval to allow cannabis microbusiness at 3200 Highway 13 West. The property is currently zoned as GIH district, and within that district, cannabis microbusinesses are listed as a conditional use. Microbusinesses are defined as a person, entity, licensed under Minnesota Statutes Chapter 342 to cultivate, manufacture, and sell cannabis products and related supplies to perform other activities authorized by the license. Cannabis Connoisseur Company is proposing only to be doing cannabis cultivation and manufacturing with no retail components or features. The purpose of the conditional use permit is to evaluate the use and the location, since it is heavily regulated by the state. They would occupy 9,800 square feet of space in the central portion of the building, directly west of Chillwater Cannabis Company, or Cannabis Shop, excuse me. Most improvements will be interior to the site, but there will be minor exterior improvements. These improvements consist of a new rear employee entrance, infilling the east and west side doors, and adding 3 to 4 parking stalls and replacing the exterior doors with secure doors and locking mechanisms. The Planning Commission previously approved Chillwater Cannabis Shop, I think it was 2 meetings ago now, and at the time, Rootkind Holdings LLC had a purchase agreement in place to purchase the property. After further deliberation and consideration, Rootkind Holdings has withdrawn their purchase agreement, and the current property owner, Vern Equity LLC, will remain ownership of that property. The current property owner does not have any plans to actively seek any other cannabis users, At this time, they only plan to allow these two cannabis tenants, the previous Chillwater Cannabis Shop and Cannabis Connoisseur Company. The Chillwater Shop and the Cannabis Connoisseur Company will require two separate conditional use permits. This is because of the requirements by the Office of Cannabis Management, also known as OCM, which evaluates each application separately, and a blanket CUP would not be allowed because it would prevent the staff from scrutinizing and reviewing each project separately. The property was built in 1969 and was most recently platted in 2006 as Burnsville Sports Center. It consists of two lots, the subject property and Yamaha Golf Cars, which is directly west of the subject site. This specific property has had several conditional use permits over the years. These conditional use permits are related to open sales, storage of new and used motor vehicles, sale of building materials, and furniture sales with a showroom. However, I would like to mention conditional use permits become void after 6 months of discontinued use. In 2023, the Minnesota legislature passed Minnesota Statute 342 and amended it in 2024 to allow adult cannabis use, which created the Office of Cannabis Management, going by the acronym of OCM, which oversees cannabis licensing and enforcement. Cities were then given an opportunity to create ordinances that provided local regulations, compliance, caps, and zoning buffers from schools, daycares, and parks in regards to cannabis. Cities were also allowed to dictate time, place, and manner restrictions as well. In 2024, Burnsville adopted ordinance number 1619, which created City Code Ordinance 10753, titled Adult Use Cannabis. And this is where we detailed each type of cannabis business and then uses in which it is either listed as permitted, prohibited, or conditional. City Council also provided direction and decided not to initiate any caps or buffers on cannabis because it was seen similar to alcohol sales and other retail sales within the community. And then specific to this request, it is a conditional use request. And Cannabis Connoisseur Company received notification in May or June of last year of their preliminary license approval. They have 18 months to secure their location and meet building, state, and local ordinances. And this is the fourth conditional use permit request that the Planning Commission has seen so far in terms of cannabis conditional use permit approval. And the reason we've been seeing so many over the past few weeks and months or so is due to this 18-month deadline. Cannabis Connoisseur Company plans to begin construction sometime in March or April of this year, so fairly quick turnaround. Cultivation would likely begin in August of this year, with first sellable product in January of next year. They would operate Monday through Sunday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and have 6 employees on site. They would occupy 9,800 square feet of space in the central portion of that building. They will install a new rear entrance, which will be the north portion of the building, which will be acting as the primary entrance for employees. Adjacent to that area will be a drive-in loading area for authorized vehicles to unload product and take product. And the south entrance will have an emergency exit, and there will also be a blackout film on the window of that exterior, or the exterior window. The interior rooms will mainly be focused on features such as drying, trimming, curing, storing, and packaging of cannabis, but there will also be rooms dedicated as flex room, sanitation, clean room, and a propagation room. The south half of the building will consist of 4 growing rooms, which will be used to grow cannabis to its maturity. The doors connecting to the neighboring units to the west and east side will be infilled due to the OCM's requirements to create. The OCM has requirements where you are allowed to have more than one cannabis business within a single building, but each unit must be distinct, meaning it must have its own separate lease and address, and it has to have demising walls. The applicant also specified there will be video surveillance, alarm system, key card, and electronic locks for the building. The HVAC system will control temperature and humidity without introducing outside air. And each cultivation room will have ductless air handling unit to recirculate air, and no mechanical pathways will direct air outdoors. This is an image of the site plan. I had to move it on its side so that you could see more details of the actual plan itself. So the north side of the property is on the right-hand side, and the southern portion of the building is on the left-hand side. I just wanted to mention in this picture that the 4 growing rooms are on the south side, so in this case, on the left-hand portion is most of the growing rooms. And the remainder of the building is the northern portion. In the front facade, there's a detail on there that says there will have a bullet-resistant blackout film, and that is to provide, is this for security purposes, and it will also screen cannabis from public view. I'd also like to point out that there's a drive-in receiving area in the back, so the right-hand side, there's a loading area for those vehicles to unload and take product. And this is an enclosed space, and that is not accessible to the public. And City Code 10726 calculates the minimum number of parking stalls required for the site. This specific code section calculates parking stalls based on the use within the building. And staff calculated this number, and the applicant requires a minimum of 13 parking stalls for the site. Previously, Chillwater Cannabis Shop, staff calculated that they needed 18 stalls. That means that together 31 stalls are required for this project. Cannabis Connoisseur Company intends to add an additional 3 to 4 stalls to the north portion of their property near the new primary employee entrance. So that will create a total of 42 to 43 parking stalls, which means that it will be exceeding the minimum number of parking requirements for this project. The delivery vehicles will utilize the internal driveways to get to the property. They expect 5 to 7 deliveries per week, and these deliveries will usually consist of things such as soil, nutrients, pots, and processing materials. And common delivery vehicles will consist of cars, pickups, and small box vans. And these deliveries will occur from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., and unload time typically will take around 10 minutes. Cannabis Connoisseur will not be transporting their own products because they are not a licensed cannabis transportation company. Instead, they will hire a licensed transportation company to deliver all their products to licensed retailers for resale or wholesalers. The applicant specified that they will have a dumpster on site, but they do not know the general location of where that dumpster will be located at this time. Staff has made a condition in this report requiring that the dumpster must meet our screening requirements. The city code specifically states that the dumpster must be screened one of 3 ways, one of which is where it is screened by having it screened on 3 sides of the private dumpster, or it could be screened behind the principal structure, or it can be screened by placing the dumpster within the principal structure or within an accessory structure. Cannabis Connoisseur Company also is determining the potential HVAC system locations and may install VFRs on the west wall. Rooftop utility units must follow City Code 10231E. New rooftop utility units shall be screened from ground level view either through parapet walls, penthouses, or other architecturally integrated features. And that condition has been added to this report, just stating that rooftop utility units must meet city code requirements on screening. The applicant also did mention that they will install a blackout film on the glass of the interior of the front facade for security purposes. And the state does not explicitly require screening. However, it does inherently require screening due to the strict security requirements that they have in place. The city code allows tinted windows, but vinyl coated windows are considered window signage. Window signage cannot cover more than 35% of the glass surface. However, after looking at the plans, the proposed film is a security window film and not considered a vinyl coating because it is a polyester-based safety glass film. In other words, the window signage requirements do not apply to this specific security window film. Things to consider is that the proposal is a use request since much is regulated by the state. The project meets the findings for approval of a conditional use permit. The proposal meets the intent of the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan and meets Burnsville Ordinance number 1619 of City Code 10753. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of the conditional use permit to allow Cannabis Connoisseur Company to operate a cannabis microbusiness at 3200 Highway 13 West, subject to the 13 conditions of approval. The project shall be completed in accordance with the submitted plans and is amended by these conditions of approval. Any significant changes to the plans as determined by the planning staff shall require review and approval by the Planning Commission and City Council. Conditional use permit approval shall expire 1 year from the date of the City Council approval unless building permit has been requested or the City Council grants a time extension. The City Council may extend the expiration date upon written application by the person to whom the approval was granted. The applicant shall complete pre-license inspections and other necessary steps required by the Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management to obtain a fully issued cannabis business license. Prior to the issuance of a building permit and local zoning approval, the tenant space shall assign a new address to reflect the suite addition. The cannabis microbusiness shall notify the city, U.S. Postal Service, and County GIS Department of the address change. All private trash and recyclable materials shall be screened in accordance with City Code 10718B. All rooftop and mechanical equipment installed shall be screened in accordance with City Code 10231E. Any exterior improvements besides the window covering shall use materials that match the existing building. Conditional use permit approval is contingent upon submittal of proof of valid preliminary and final licenses from the Minnesota Office of Cannabis Management prior to operation. The business shall maintain all required state licenses for the duration of the conditional use permit. All cannabis cultivation and manufacturing activities shall be fully contained within the principal structure. No outdoor activities or storage are permitted. Failure to operate in compliance with Minnesota statutes and rules governing cannabis microbusinesses shall be grounds for termination of the conditional use permit. The business shall implement odor suppression measures, including but not limited to HVAC filtration, carbon scrubbers to prevent detectable odors beyond the property line. And security measures shall be installed and maintained consistent with the Office of Cannabis Management requirements and city code, including controlled access, exterior lighting, and surveillance cameras. With that, I will stand for any questions that the Planning Commission may have for me.
Questions?
Yeah.
So any external, like the HVAC and security fencing, is that the responsibility of the applicant or the property owner?
In terms of like screening for like the HVAC unit or
having the right HVAC system in place?
yeah, so since this is a condition for the conditional use permit, it would be the responsibility of the applicant being in compliance. And they will also need a mechanical permit for when they submit the HVAC plans. So that will be reviewed by our building department as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know,
In the previous application with a different proposed owner, you talked about cleanup of the site. Is that still in place?
They would still need to meet local ordinances, specifically nuisance ordinances as well. That is something that we would still need to address, and neighborhood services can address that as well.
Okay.
Mr. Lowe.
Just to confirm, no signage, permitting, or anything being asked at this time?
Nothing is being asked at this time. We did provide them information on signage requirements, and they have not provided any signage plans at this time. If they do intend to change signage, they will need to submit a sign permit, and then staff will review that.
Mr.
I'm just trying to get a picture in my head of what this building is going to look like. So essentially, there'll be no signage on their section of the building, just blacked out windows and just,
They can submit signage, they just haven't submitted any plans for that, but at this time, I haven't received any.
so it's just a building with blacked out windows at this point.
Correct, yeah.
Are there particular standards regarding the type of windows that are be in place to reduce break-in possibilities?
The city code doesn't have specific regulations, at least for planning perspective, on the type of window that they must use. The Office of Cannabis Management may have something, but that is something that regardless, they will need to do a pre-license inspection and they review plans as well. So that is maybe something that the Office of Cannabis Management may look at.
Any other questions? Okay. Going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come forward?
Hello, Planning Commission. My name is Nick with Cannabis Connoisseur Company. I want to thank all you for spending the time with us and for having Kira and her team support us through this venture. So I just want to come up and introduce myself, let you know who I am and the person behind all this. So thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Chris Parrington. I'm Outside Compliance Director for Cannabis Connoisseur, and I just wanted to address a couple of the questions that were asked, specifically about the glass. There are OCM requirements. This property will actually have anti-break glass alarms. So in addition to the security cameras that are monitoring it, there will also be alarms that will trigger if there is a break-in and entering that will then be alerted directly to the owner and directly to law enforcement, and they have the ability to control it. So there will be security cameras everywhere. There will be lighting covering it. I jokingly tell people that these facilities, in my 14 years of experience in this space, are probably more secure than the banks in the community because of all of the alarms, all of the doors, all of the locks and everything. So, but I just wanted to address that question that the OCM does have requirements, and we will be fully compliant.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone online to ask questions?
Do not see anyone.
Nothing. Okay. This closes the public hearing. Commissioners, any further discussion?
So one additional question that you can probably answer. We talked about the odor suppression can't go beyond the property line. Maybe I'm reading into this too far, but the property line meaning extending how many ever yards it is from the building, or beyond the building, there could be no odors?
So that refers to the property line in front of the building, so it's like several feet in front of it, so kind of right before the parking lot, and then afterwards is kind of where that property line would be. It's not to the tenant's space, it's to that property line.
Do we know from any prior facilities, like grow operations, et cetera, do the odors actually emulate outside the building, or are they, I mean, what I'm thinking about is when you pull in that parking lot, or on a windy day, I'm trying to determine how far that odor goes. Maybe, I mean, I'm not trying to direct the meeting here, but
Nick Hussein again. So these rooms are completely sealed facilities. We use a material called IMP, which is a 4-inch thick material. All seams are sealed, and the full HVAC within the room is a sealed assembly. So everything from an inside those rooms, from a smell standpoint, is scrubbed, and then all exterior rooms are scrubbed as well. So there's no expulsion of air within a room except in a catastrophic area. As an example, an HVAC system has an alarm that sets CO2 too high. That would be the only time a diffuser would then expel air or apply fresh air into a room, but that is only in a catastrophic situation. Almost from a smell mitigation standpoint too, that is only within the flowering time. So as our cycles are, the smell is stronger there, that's when the scrubbers are obviously working a little bit harder. But I want to be very clear, nothing is exposed to the exterior of the building, and in fact, the grow rooms, as well as any rooms that carry maturing plants, those rooms are within additional rooms. So we're sealed within another room. And then security measures, just to kind of answer that as well, as Chris communicated with the cameras, all the security doors on this are assigned to our cameras. So we know who's going in which room. We're able to assign those, find out. So from a security standpoint, extremely secure facility, kind of run like a lab. To enter it as an employee, you're having to change your outfits and everything. So that same kind of thought process is done from the smell mitigation standpoint as well. So
thank you.
thank you, Mr. Long.
Any other questions or comments? Very good. Do I have a motion on this?
I can make a motion. I recommend to the City Council the approval of the CUP to allow Cannabis Connoisseur Company LLC to operate a cannabis microbusiness at 3200 Highway 13 West, subject to the 13 conditions of approval.
Is there a second? Commissioner Anderson. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. The next one is for Carba, requesting a CUP for 5 kilns, allow storage of materials and equipment in the flood fringe at 1020 Cliff Road.
Thank you
And
for
also
that.
presenting.
Thank you for that introduction. Yes, today we're going to talk about Carver Incorporated requesting conditional use permit to approve 5 kilns on site and allow the storage of materials and equipment in the flood fringe at 1020 Cliff Road West. The left-hand image is an aerial picture of the subject site. This is an image off of Kramer property. It's their northeastern portion of their property, and the site itself where the equipment will be located is highlighted in this circled red area. And the right-hand image is a zoning map of the subject site and the surrounding properties. The subject site is zoned I2 GW General Industry District and Gateway District, and is guided as MRQ Minnesota River Quadrant in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Properties to the northwest and south are similarly zoned and guided. There are properties to the east and south that are highlighted in this darker blue color, and these properties are zoned as GIM GW, which is Gateway Industrial Medium, Gateway District, but guided also MRQ. And those specifically properties directly to the east and south in that other blue color indicate Ivy Brook Parking and also Commercial Asphalt Company. Directly east of the property is I-35W. Carba is requesting 2 conditional use permits, permit approvals. One is to allow up to 5 kilns on the site, and the other request is to allow the storage of materials and equipment in the flood fringe. They currently have a year-to-year lease with Kramer, and located on the northeastern portion of their property. And they intend to produce biochar by heating and drying wood chips, and this is completely all outdoors, and the current site is horizontally bisected by a flood fringe. When they make their biochar, they intend to send their final product to Burnsville Sanitary Landfill to sequester carbon and to mitigate landfill odors. Kramer Mining and Materials owns the subject property and has received several approvals over the past several years. Most notably is approvals from 2003, which was a conditional use permit approval to grade and fill 40 acres of their flood fringe in the northeastern portion of their property, which is where Carba is currently located. And the site at the time ranged in elevations of 700 to 720 foot elevation. The flood fringe was about 717 feet, and the conditional use permit allowed Kramer to increase their elevation from, or basically increase the elevation between 717 and 721 feet above the flood elevation, therefore above the flood elevation itself. And before 2003, the site was used as a holding site for rain events. As such, Kramer paid the city to operate a mobile pump to force water from nearby drainage ditch in high water conditions. And this conditional use permit request is needed to separate the applicant's use from Kramer and also to prevent liability for the property owner. The first conditional use permit request is to allow kilns on the site, a maximum of 5 kilns on the property. The subject property is zoned I2 district. Kilns within that district are listed as conditional uses. Kilns, there will be a variety of equipment on the site, one of which will be a kiln. The other equipment include things such as a storage trailer, rotary dryer, and stacking conveyor. All of these equipment will be stored on top of a concrete pad, and a vegetative management company will deliver wood chips daily to the site. And I'm just going to flip to this slide real quick, just as I kind of briefly discuss the process of the actual biochar production. I'm going to provide a very high-level overview, and the applicant provide more detail about the actual process. But just to briefly discuss this image, the left-hand image is where I'm going to discuss the actual process, and the right-hand image is just a site plan of where the equipment will be situated and oriented. So how it will work is that the wood chips will be stored in a trailer, and then it will be conveyed to a rotary dryer, and then transferred to a rotary kiln to create the biochar. And the operators will sample the biochar as it exits the rotary kiln for quality. It is then cooled and mist and conveyed through a stacking conveyor, and it's anticipated about 60 yards of biochar will be produced per day. The applicant will then transport the product to Burnsville Sanitary Landfill for purposes to, as mentioned earlier, sequester carbon, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and mitigate landfill odors. Carba intends to start with one kiln for their project, and as they continue on, there's potential for increasing to an additional 4 kilns on site for a total of 5 kilns. They don't anticipate any significant noise will be produced on site, considering that the rotary dryer and kiln have a 9-inch thick exterior, and it's will likely not be louder than any ambient industrial noise to the surrounding areas, and likely not louder than traffic along Interstate 35W. There's potential for some odor to emit from the site, and this will likely be a woody or smoky scent, but this odor will not surpass the Minnesota Pollution Control Agencies, or also known as the MPCA, will not surpass their odor emission thresholds or Burnsville's nuisance codes. Excuse me. The applicant did speak with the MPCA, and the MPCA determined that Carba will operate below their thresholds. For their own due diligence, Carba did reach out to them and requested what's called an applicability determination report, also known as an ADR, for their own records. And that is basically a formal MPCA review to determine applicable state or federal air permitting requirements. And MPCA will complete this within the calendar year. The second request for the conditional use permit is to allow the storage of materials within the flood fringe. But while looking at the website of FEMA's mapping website, the most current FEMA map is from 2011 of the subject site, and it shows that where Carba will be located is in a flood fringe. We did request Carba to submit a site survey, and they did provide that to us, and staff reviewed it and provided it to Lower Min as well, Lower Minnesota River Watershed District, and determined that it is above the 100-year flood elevation. However, anytime municipalities review floodplain permits or projects, we always review it based on the current FEMA map, and which is the reason for this conditional use permit request. And most equipment on site will not be easily removable. However, there are some things such as the trailers and the trucks will be easily removable within a day. However, this is not a large concern that it is above the 100-year flood elevation. And staff did meet with Kramer to discuss this application and tell them, or notify them, that the FEMA maps are not up to date despite the 2003 approvals. And staff encouraged them basically in their best interest for improving their flood insurance, and also if they intend to redevelop their northeastern portion of their site where Carba is, or in that general area, it's in their own best interest to do what's called a letter of map revision, also known as a LOMAR. And this is basically to update the flood hazard information and prevent discrepancies in the FEMA map. Staff have added this as a condition to the report, and we did ask Kramer beforehand if this was an appropriate condition, if this was something they were amenable to, and they agreed that it would be. They had spoken with their legal team and agreed that this was a good thing to do, and it sounds like they've just started doing some of the surveying work. The site is located in the Drinking Water Protection Environmental Overlay Zone, and staff does not anticipate any impacts to the water resources. The kilns will be installed on a concrete pad, which will prevent soil infiltration, and Carba does not expect any leaks of the rotary kiln because introducing oxygen to the mechanism would substantially prevent the efficiency of the production of the biochar. And molten salt within the mechanism cools and solidifies at 446 Fahrenheit, and once it's solidified, it will not permeate into soils. And if it did have a potential leak, the molten salt is non-toxic and it is not reactive to water. CARBA also confirmed that the site has a secondary containment mechanism for potential spills. We did provide plans to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and also Lower Minnesota River Watershed District. And they did provide some comments about this as well, and it can be seen in the report. But to summarize, the DNR stated that the primary concern is ensuring that no materials are stored in the floodplain are prohibited pollutants, and runoff shall go to a stormwater management system or direct away from the floodplain. Staff did require that they install berms to be incorporated to prevent runoff and spills from reaching the surface water. After further analysis, staff also decided that it does not trigger additional stormwater management requirements. And then after staff also provided these plans to Lower Minnesota River Watershed District, and they stated that a Rule C permit would be needed if land is filled or altered below the 100-year flood elevation. Lower Min recommended that Kramer complete what's called a letter of map revision with FEMA or the DNR for area requiring updates. There will be a gravel compacted area for employees to park on site. They anticipate having 2 to 3 vehicles parked at the site. These will be personal vehicles, and these vehicles will be able to access the property either by accessing Embassy Road or Cliff Road West using the site's internal gravel driveways. And the vegetative management company will provide 100 yards of wood chips per day. CARBA will transport the biochar to Burnsville Sanitary Landfill every 2 weeks with a company trailer, and the day that they do that every 2 weeks would be about 4 to 6 times that day through using the private roadways. The applicant did state that they will have 1 dumpster on site, but the dumpster will be significantly screened due to the existing vegetation on the site. The site was selected partly due to heavy vegetation in that area and away from major roadways. All the waste that will be in the dumpster will all be related to office and packaging waste and will not include any waste produced by the equipment. The dumpster will be collected once a month by a hauler. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the conditional use permit to allow up to 5 kilns and allow the storage of materials and equipment in the flood fringe at 1020 Cliff Road West, subject to the 12 conditions of approval. The project shall be completed in accordance with the plans submitted as amended by the conditions of approval. Any significant changes to the plans as determined by the planning staff shall require review and approval by the Planning Commission and City Council. The project shall comply with all applicable local, state, and federal regulations, including not limited to MPCA's regulations and building and fire codes. Kramer Mining and Materials shall submit a letter of map revision to FEMA within the calendar year of the City Council date. Conditional use permit approval shall expire 1 year from the date of the City Council approval unless a building permit has been requested or a time extension has been granted by the City Council. The City Council may extend the expiration date of such approval upon written application by the person to whom the approval was granted. The site shall be maintained in a neat and orderly manner. No outdoor storage shall result in debris, dust, or materials encroaching into neighboring properties. No more than 5 kilns shall be permitted for this proposed project in accordance with the conditional use permit. Additional kilns shall require an amendment to this conditional use permit. The project shall act in accordance with the city's noise standards. If the city receives numerous complaints, a noise study may be required, and mitigation measures shall be implemented if necessary. The project shall comply with MPCA's odor regulations and the city's nuisance codes. If the city receives several complaints, the applicant shall take corrective measures to resolve the issue in a timely manner. Any new exterior lighting shall be downward directed and meet City Code 10736. The project shall not have hazardous or environmentally detrimental materials or pollutants on site. This approval shall run with the land, but applies specifically to the biochar production facility. Failure to comply with the conditions of this approval may result in review of or refusal, risk of refusal of the conditional use permit in accordance with the city code. With that, I will turn it over to the planning commission for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for a very detailed presentation. All right, commissioners, go ahead. Holly.
Excellent presentation, thank you. This is kind of a weird question, but number three, the condition number 3 is that Kramer Mining and Materials shall submit a letter of map revision, but they're not the applicant, is it because they're essentially the landlord in this process that how do we enforce that, since they're not the Kramer Mining is not at the table here, they're not the applicant?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So we did that, we provided this condition because this was something that Lower Minnesota River Watershed District highly encouraged that we pursue. And we did have conversations with Kramer to ask them if this was an appropriate condition to add. And they did agree to that. I understand that it is confusing to have that as a condition, but after kind of speaking with staff, it was my understanding that this is not something that CARBA would be responsible for completing. This is something that the property owner would be responsible for satisfying.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
Any discussions or concerns about traffic patterns within the area with the addition of this?
Staff has been speaking closely with the applicant, and numerous departments have been in constant conversation, fire department, building department, planning. We didn't see any issues with traffic. It doesn't seem like it will add substantial amount of traffic, considering that it would be once a day it would have a hauler coming and providing the wood chips, and then every 2 weeks they would only be going to Burnsville Sanitary Landfill about 4 to 5 times that day. So it's not that high compared to some of their adjacent industrial neighbors.
Commissioner, the city engineer reviewed these plans as well and did not have any concerns regarding traffic use as a result of the operation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Open up the public hearing. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, council members. My name's Rich Baker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and the System Engineer for this project. So I've done most of the design on this. Happy to answer any questions. And this is Hannah Cheeseman.
Hi, I'm Hannah Cheeseman. I'm the project engineer for this project. Been working closely with Kira on this for a while, but happy to answer any questions you guys have or clarify anything.
Oh, go ahead.
Commissioner Anderson.
Is this still an experimental process, or has it been proven that it works to mitigate the odor?
So the process of making biochar is pretty well established. There are many facilities doing it. We have maybe a slightly different approach, that we have a completely sealed kiln that's anoxic. The material that we produce is used as cover, and so it's mixed with the soil and then used for cover at the landfill. It is shown to absorb methane and some other chemicals. I don't know that if that's answering your question or not.
Sounds like it's been used.
It has. I think this is maybe the first time it's been used directly into the landfill as a cover, as an alternative for soil.
Any other questions?
That covered my question as well. Thank you.
I do have one question.
Commissioner.
I think I know the answer to this because it sounds like the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency's already addressed it, but the odors and the smoke that is coming from the kilns, I don't know what their regulations are, I guess, but will there be smoke that can make it to the freeway? Or is that not possible?
There should not be. If you had an excursion where something ran incorrectly, it could, but otherwise we should be burning all of the gases that come out of the wood, but not the wood itself, not the carbon in the wood. We're trying to recover, save that for the landfill. And the smell would be like, it's the recipe for liquid smoke if you bubble that through water. And so that's the smell that you would get if you had any.
It would beat the landfill smell. So I guess that's good.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Anything on Zoom or
Don't see any.
no questions? Okay. That closes the public hearing. Okay. Commissioners, any additional conversation or comments? Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Commissioner Anderson.
I move that the planning commission recommend to the city council approval of the conditional use permit to allow up to 5 kilns and allow storage of materials and equipment in the flood fringe at 1020 Cliff Road West, subject to the conditions listed.
I'll second that motion.
Second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next on the list, applicant for Kwik Trip.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Great to be with you this evening. As Mr. Chair mentioned, the application before you is a public hearing for a Kwik Trip development. The subject site is located within the northeast quadrant of the city, more specifically at the southeast intersection of Highway 13 and Diffley Road. The subject site before you does consist of 2 parcels currently. The applicant would be proposing to plat those and combine those into 1 parcel. Bordering the site on the west is Highway 13. To the north is Diffley Road. South is the Rivers Retirement Community, and to the east is the City of Egan. I will note, within the City of Egan, there is a 0.67 acre parcel as shown on screen before you that will be part of the development plans that we'll discuss in depth. And then to the east of that is the Metcalf site, if you're familiar, and there is currently approvals within the City of Egan for Metcalf Park, which is a residential development. So just to provide that background to the commission. Background and history related to the subject site before you. Again, there are 2 sites. The southern site was developed in 1965 with the Riverview Shopping Center, and in addition was constructed in 1971. The northern site gained original approvals in 1962 for a motor fuel station, and a CUP was issued for a car wash in 1968. In 1986, for the northern lot, a variance was granted. The hardship was related to intersection improvements and the Minnesota Department of Transportation, which required additional right-of-way, and that is now that 0.67 acre parcel that I mentioned within the kind of site image. And that's currently located within the City of Egan and owned by the City of Egan as well. Additional approvals for the northern site were granted between 1986 to 1992 for various site improvements. In June of 2023, approvals were granted for a new car wash, as some commissioners might remember. However, the approvals for that application did expire, and the applicant did not record the plat or move forward with the approved development plans. In July of 2023, demolition of the northern site was completed, including the car wash, the fuel station, and the underground tanks. And then demo of the Riverview Shopping Center was completed recently in August of 2025. As a result, the site is now vacant and ready for redevelopment. The first application before the commission is a preliminary and final plat, again to combine the 2 subject sites into 1 parcel. I'll highlight 2 items before the commission that are unique to the application before you. The first is a 20-foot roadway easement that exists along the western property line, and the second is that 0.67 acre parcel currently owned by the City of Egan. Firstly, the 20-foot roadway easement is highlighted or shaded in gray on screen before you. It runs the entire length of the western property line and actually continues through the property to the south, the Rivers Retirement Community, and is the access off of Highway 13 to the subject site. The easement was originally created in 1950 and was platted in 1964 as a part of the River Hill 7th Edition plat. Details of the easement, including any maintenance terms, are unknown, as staff, the attorney, and the applicant have researched this quite in depth, but haven't been able to locate any specific details, really due to the age of the document dating back to the 1950s. Kwik Trip is proposing access within this roadway easement area. However, the access proposed is 24 feet in width, so wider than the 20-foot easement. As a result, there is a condition of approval that requires Kwik Trip to either record a new easement that allows for the width, or to narrow the roadway width to, or the access width to 20 feet to be within that easement area. And in addition, within the condition of approval in your packets, it does include maintenance agreement requirements with the property owner to the south, as the access would cross property lines. The second item is the parcel within the city of Eagan that's highlighted in yellow or orange on screen before you. That parcel was originally created related to MnDOT intersection improvements at Highway 13 and Diffley Road. To note, within the legal documents for that parcel, it does state that the parcel is to be used for roadway purposes only. As a result, the city of Eagan is working with the state to remove that language, which would then allow Kwik Trip to purchase the parcel and utilize that as a site access to the subject site with access off of Diffley Road. There's a condition of approval requiring Kwik Trip to show full ownership prior to recording of the final plat for that parcel. The second application before this evening is a conditional use permit for the motor fuel station and accessory car wash, which is required within the mixed use zoning district. Ordinance does have specific requirements for motor fuel stations and car washes within the mixed use district, which are listed on screen before you. The applicant is meeting all of these except for the fuel canopy setback to the eastern property line, which we'll discuss in a few slides. The proposed site plan is shown on screen before you. We'll just walk through it briefly. 2 accesses are proposed, which are outlined in red. Firstly, the Highway 13 access is proposed and to remain in the same location. We'll note that the applicant did submit pre-submittal plans to the Minnesota Department of Transportation to ensure the access can remain. MnDOT did reply with a letter and stated that the access can remain provided a right turn out is constructed or included. So the applicant would be required to construct a right out movement. So this would become a right in and a right out access on Highway 13. The second access is located off of Diffley Road and is proposed to be a full access similar to what's existing today, or what was existing when the site was utilized or developed. There is an access existing today to the west, which is right here. That access would be removed and then sodded or landscaped in accordance with the landscape plan. Within the central portion of the site, shown in yellow, is the convenience store that's proposed. This is Kwik Trip's Generation 3 model, which is the most recent and current Kwik Trip store that they are building. It's approximately 9,100 square feet and does include outdoor patio seating and tables. Within the site, there'd be the same goods as other Kwik Trip sites throughout the region for sale, including hot and cold food, fresh produce, grocery items, and various bakery items. The fueling area is shown in orange on screen, consists of 10 pumps and 20 fueling positions. Both diesel and gasoline sales are proposed. The car wash is shown in red on screen and is proposed to be approximately 1,700 square feet. This would be a tunnel car wash system, or in layman's terms, like a conveyor belt system where cars are constantly flowing through it, not one where you stop and wait for 3 or 5 minutes. So again, a tunnel system for that car wash at the moment. 6 stacking spaces are provided, as well as a bypass lane, provided a vehicle would want to bail out of the stacking area. To note, adjacent to the building is the proposed trash enclosure. Walls would be connected to the principal structure. It would be similar materials, same materials as the principal structure. Northern portion of the site is proposed for stormwater ponding and would meet applicable requirements per engineering standards. The applicant has requested a planned unit development. As the commission knows and is aware, a PUD is used to deviate from ordinance requirements, and in this case to develop a challenging property, which is really due to the shape and the municipal boundary with the city of Eagan running through the middle of the project, or a portion of the project. There are 4 deviations requested. The first 3 that are listed, the parking setback, landscaped yard, and fuel canopy setback, would not be required if that 0.67 acre parcel in Egan was located within the city of Burnsville. So on screen before you, again, that parcel is shown and the municipal boundary is shown. Within the table, you can see the setback from the municipal boundary, which is the Burnsville line, so from the red. These 3 do not meet that requirement. However, if you measured from the eastern property line of the Egan parcel, they would meet that requirement. The 4th and final deviation requested is for parking stalls. The applicant is requesting a deviation of 8 stalls, which is based on vehicle turnover, which does occur at a high rate within fuel stations, and the floor area calculation utilized by the applicant versus the city. The applicant utilizes a parking ratio based on actual retail area of the building, while city code bases it off of the entire square footage of the building minus 25%, which is intended to account for bathrooms, utility rooms, mechanical rooms, and the like. In this case, the calculations differed by the 8 stalls. However, the applicant is intending to meet the ordinance requirements, but is proposing to utilize their calculation, which is based off strictly the retail area where customers are actually functioning, I guess, or mostly visiting within the store. The Development Review Committee of the city did review this and had no concerns, as the parking does align with other motor fuel station sites that have been developed throughout the city. As mentioned, applicant's proposing a total of 61 stalls, and I'll also just note that overflow parking opportunities temporarily are provided along this eastern side of the building. You know, if there's a peak time where there's a ton of vehicles for a major event or something, they could temporarily park here while they visit the store, something of the like. In terms of parking, the parking site plan is on screen. The applicant has proposed a total of 61 stalls. 38 are standard vehicle parking stalls, which are shown in yellow on screen before you. 3 of them are ADA accessible, and 20 stalls are accounted for via the fuel pump area, which is allowed by the parking code and the city code to count towards the overall parking stall count. The applicant is proposing a total of 6 stacking spaces for the car wash. Code requires a minimum of 4, so the applicant is exceeding that. And they are proposing a bypass lane here in case, again, vehicles do want to bail out. A dedicated delivery area is proposed along the eastern wall of the building. That would be painted and striped accordingly. And you can see the circulation movements for larger vehicles. It's a very easy maneuver for them to make. In terms of architecture, the applicant is meeting code requirements. They're proposing the exterior materials that are listed on screen. I will note code does require that a minimum of 3 design elements are met. The applicant is meeting 4 of them with their proposal. The proposed convenience store is shown on screen before you, again utilizing the red brick, the stucco, and the metal roof. I will highlight the trash enclosure is shown here, which again is connected to the building, same materials, and would include a gate to fully screen. And then patio seating can be seen along the building here. The car wash is shown on screen before you, again matching materials to the principal structure. And the fuel canopy is shown on screen. I will note that the applicant has proposed half brick wrapped columns, which does exceed code requirements, as there aren't any for material requirements on the actual supporting structure for the canopy. In terms of landscaping, the applicant has submitted a detailed landscape plan, which does meet ordinance requirements. The number of plantings are shown on screen before you. We'll note there's a buffer that's proposed along Highway 13 and the southern property line as required by code. And there is a condition that requires a final landscape plan be approved by planning staff and includes plantings along that eastern boundary of the city of Egan. Per Egan's request, plantings were requested to screen headlights from that residential development to the east. Landscaping plan is shown on screen. The western image shows the overall site. The eastern image zooms into the main portion of the site, I'll say. Again, the buffers along Highway 13, as well as that southern property line. I'll note that the applicant did put a lot of effort into ensuring the proposed plantings and actual plants on site would screen headlights year-round, recognizing the community to the south as well as the delivery area here where trucks would likely have their headlights pointing. The plants would be at a height that does screen the taller vehicles year-round sufficiently. In terms of planning considerations, the application does meet the requirements of the city code. Motor fuel stations and accessory car washes are allowed with a conditional use permit. The applicant has made efforts to minimize adverse impacts to surrounding properties. The proposal does align with the 2040 comprehensive plan and meets the intent of the zoning ordinance as well. The recommendation is on screen before you. I will also note one of the recommendations, number 4, is to terminate existing conditional use permits and variances. That is just to clean up the subject site. There's a lot of old approval sitting out there dating back to the 60s, so it just starts with a clean slate and resets things moving forward with the redevelopment project. For conditions of approval, the site shall be platted with the Dakota County Recorder's Office prior to the issuance of any building permits. Prior to the issuance of the final plat for recording, the applicant shall pay applicable development fees. Prior to the release of the final plat for recording, the applicant shall coordinate with the property owner to the south to either revise the easement width restrictions to accommodate the proposed roadway dimensions or adjust the roadway accordingly. Prior to the release of the final plat for recording, the applicant shall demonstrate full ownership of the .67 acre parcel located immediately east of the subject site within the city of Eagan. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, all outstanding items from the February 27th, 2026 City Engineer Review Memo shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the City Engineer. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall address and incorporate all applicable comments from third-party agencies. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall provide required securities for landscaping, bituminous paving, and concrete curb and gutter. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall revise the landscape plan to provide screening on the .67 acre parcel located within the city of Eagan. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, a final landscape plan shall be approved by planning staff in writing. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, a maintenance agreement or similar agreement between the applicant and the property owner to the south for the shared access road from Highway 13 shall be fully executed and recorded with the Dakota County Recorder's Office. A copy of that agreement shall be submitted to the city. If repeat nuisance complaints are received regarding site operations, such as deliveries, noise, car wash hours of operation, and the like, the applicant shall work with city staff to resolve the complaints to the satisfaction of the city. The car wash bay doors shall remain closed at all times, except when a vehicle is actively entering or exiting the bay, or when the bay doors are open for active maintenance. The applicant shall maintain landscaping to the edge of the curb on adjacent roadways. In the event the property owner to the south seeks a trail connection to the subject site, the applicant shall provide a reasonable location and opportunity for such a connection, subject to review and approval by city staff. And prior to the installation of any on-site signage, a sign permit shall be obtained by the applicant. With that, I'll leave the recommendation on screen, available for questions, and the applicant is in attendance as well.
All right, great presentation, thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Commissioner Howard.
Thank you. I do have a question. Condition number 4, prior to the release of the final plat for recording, the applicant shall demonstrate full ownership of the parcel that's now part of Eagan. Any idea on what the timing for that is? Because just in terms of process, you can't get a building permit until the plat has been recorded, right? So, timing.
Yeah, that's correct. Commissioner Wad, that's correct. The intent of this is just to ensure before, the final plat goes for recording and anything is official, because that outlot is included within the platted area, we want to ensure that the applicant owns that area as well.
Yeah, I totally get it. I'm just wondering, do you have a sense for what the timing of that process is? Because the state has to let the road go, and then Eagan has to let it go, and there's a lot of hoops to jump through there.
That's correct. It's a detailed process. Eagan actually had to sue the state to get the language removed and is working through that process. But that's expected to be completed within the next 50 days.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, they'd be able to move forward with purchasing that parcel. And I believe the city of Eagan might require platting of that within their city, but the applicant would proceed with Eagan on those items.
Okay, thank you.
Questions?
Kind of a traffic flow question. The mall that was there previously, did they have a right turn out of that mall? Or did they have to, how did they get out? The reason I'm asking, well, it looks like you're gonna pull up the map probably. So I have two concerns. Are we adding a new right turn on to 13 that wasn't previously there? And I'd be curious what the traffic engineer, or if they've taken a look at that, because I know at Nicollet, we've had problems, and now we're adding a new problem. So that's one question I have, is if it was there before or not. And then the second question I have is, when the cars are coming in, it almost looks like, for instance, today I was at the Kwik Trip at 5 and 136th, and the stack for the car wash is probably 10 to 12 cars deep. Is that going to interfere with the right turn in? Because it looks like the cars are going to be stacking. If they overflow out of that stacking lane, it looks like they're going to be in the entrance lane. I'm wondering if that's been addressed at all.
Yeah, Commissioner Long, first related to Highway 13, I don't believe there's a right out currently. There was a right in, as that access is currently there. So the new portion on Highway 13 would be a right out, which is being required by MnDOT as a part of their review. In terms of traffic review, the city engineer didn't have any concerns with that, believes that that access will provide sufficient traffic levels, and MnDOT also reviewed for State Highway 13 and doesn't find any concerns with the traffic volume on that road or location access with the right out as they're requiring it. Related to internal site circulation, staff has had a lot of conversations with Kwik Trip and internally on just how the site flows overall. Firstly, with the car wash, because this is a tunnel car wash system, cars are constantly flowing through that. So, a huge, kind of stacking issue isn't necessarily anticipated because of the car wash style. But also, this roadway width or access width is 30 feet. So a standard one is about 24 feet. So the applicant's kind of taken into account, say on, a peak event after a snowstorm or what have you, vehicles could, wrap around here or I guess even here, and there'd be enough width there to support a couple extra, or the width of that vehicle.
I still have a concern about that right turn out based on the accidents we've had on 13 over the years, including, all the way that whole stretch. And I understand MnDOT required it and it's not the applicant's fault. It just seems to not make any sense to me. But
Commissioner Anderson.
Going to that, I've used that access both in and out, and people could go out today, even if it's not set up for that.
okay.
And don't they have to put a lane in someplace that, for people turning out, so there's some buffer?
I believe that's correct. Currently, the access width right now would be the same as Kwik Trip's proposing, so wider than that easement. So it would support kind of two-way traffic right now, even though that's not necessarily the intent. Kwik Trip would be required to put that right turn out, if that's what, okay.
Has Egan provided their input on this total project?
Yeah, Commissioner Hamilton, we've been working closely with the City of Egan. We did send the entire submittal to City of Egan when we received it. The only comment we received was related to ensuring screening along that eastern property boundary for headlights. Otherwise, they didn't have any concerns at this point.
Another question. Is it allowed, or is there space for semi-parking, perhaps just for overnight or anything?
No, Commissioner Hamilton, that's not the intent of the site. It would only be for fuel deliveries for the fuel pumps, but no room or, wouldn't be permitted, I guess, on site.
Very good. Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone from Kwik Trip who would like to come forward?
Hi, everybody. So Dean George here on behalf of Kwik Trip. Thank you for having us. This will be our, third site. I always want to say 4, but I think the one down on Crystal Lake Road is technically in Apple Valley or Lakeville. Let's clear up some things on the site design. So I think the access onto Highway 13 is we have to install a right turn lane in off of 13, and then the right out is being allowed by MnDOT. So I don't think there's a right turn lane out. We're just going to utilize the existing access that's there, but MnDOT wants us to construct a turn lane to enter. So it's the kind of, so you're not just kind of slowing down in the right lane to make that right in. So there'll be a separate lane coming into the driveway, which I think maybe helps clear up some issues there. MnDOT did, I believe, look at it and is allowing the right in, right out movement, which I think is what's there today, because there's a full meeting running up 13. On the car wash thing, so the tunnel wash is a new system compared to Store 585 over on 5 in Burnsville Parkway. It's intended to increase throughput, so we can serve, if double, I suppose is what we say. So a tunnel wash can get 2 times the amount of cars as a single bay wash can. So if you have, 6 or 7 cars stacked, it takes the amount of time to get them through as you normally would for 3. So if we can provide 6 stacking spaces, we generally are comfortable that this stacking is not going to bleed into that drive aisle. If there's any other questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Anecdotally, I sat at this podium 7 years ago and dealt with the planning body and the council body on the store that on 5 in Burnsville Parkway, and it was a very enjoyable experience for me. So we're happy to be back in Burnsville.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Just out of curiosity, how does this footprint compare to the footprint at 5 and 136?
The 5 and 136th store is our Generation 2 model.
Okay.
So that's about a 7,200 square foot store. This one's 9,100. The retail floor space is largely the same. We just have a little bit more back office, a little more cooler space, a little more storage space in all of our Gen 3 builds. And the kitchen's a little bit larger. Our hot food program has gotten a little bit more expansive over the years, so there's a little bit extra space in the kitchen for our coworkers to work.
Any other questions? Is there anyone on Zoom or anyone to ask questions?
Doesn't look like anyone trying to.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I just want to say it seems like a great project. It'll be nice to have something developed, and new at that corner.
Yeah.
It's been kind of sad for the last several years. So
Yeah.
very excited about it.
Commissioner Anderson.
I had one other question. Have they cleaned up the underground tanks from the previous?
Yeah, that's correct, Commissioner Anderson. Those have been removed in 2023 with the demo permit.
Okay. Sir.
I'd be happy to make a motion unless somebody else is.
I'd be happy
kinda-
if you made a motion.
Okay. So I move that we recommend to the city council approval of the conditional use permit to allow a motor fuel facility and accessory freestanding car wash, approval of the concept and development stage planned unit development, approval of the preliminary plat, I might have to, bear with me here. Approval of the preliminary and final plat of Kwik Trip 1952, and to terminate the existing conditional use permits and variances in effect of the subject site located southeast of the intersection of Highway 13 East and Diffley Road, subject to the conditions that were listed.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Passed. All right. Thank you. All right. Any updates from the city?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners, I do have 3 quick updates. Council approved the CUP for the Community Garden Cannabis Microbusiness located at 14300 Ewing Avenue South at the March 3rd meeting. They also heard a presentation from Chair Braddock on the Planning Commission's 2026 work plan, which was unanimously approved by the council, and who expressed gratitude for all of your work serving on this body. And then lastly, Mike mentioned it in passing at the last Planning Commission, but I would like to recognize Mr. Connor Jakes, who is not in here any longer, but has been promoted to senior planner with the city of Burnsville, and it's well earned. And that's it.
Any other updates? That's it? I know we talked about setting up a tour of the new.
Yes, that has been, your request is received, and the administration is organizing a tour for all of our commissions.
Okay.
And I don't have the date in front of me. I want to say it's the 23rd, but I'll provide that information to the Planning Commission
Thank you.
tomorrow, but
All right.
it is being arranged.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, any other comments from the commission? All right, next is motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, Commissioner. Second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Meeting adjourned.
Congratulations, Connor.